climate catastrophe is already here. Is climate disaster already upon us? Scientists say the answer is yes. We are now experiencing the effects of human-caused climate change, and even if we drastically alter our polluting behavior today, which of course is a big if, we'll continue to see changes over the next 2 to 3 decades. This change is irreversible, and scientists and researchers predict it may be worse than the depressing situation Al Gore foretold in An Inconvenient Truth. Yes, it could be worse. What happens in the next 20 or 30 years is largely already determined, said the head of the Climate Analysis Section at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. Carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere have already increased by more than 35% since pre-industrial times from human activities. Over half of that increase has occurred since 1970. Although this prognosis seems dire, there is hope. While we can't change the polluting that has already occurred, we can make changes right now that will leave a cleaner world for the future generations. What kind of world are the kids going to inherit? One important message to convey is we can very much affect what happens 50, 70, even 90 years from now by the decisions we make today, said a senior atmospheric scientist. If we act now, once again, that's a very big if, because of the worldwide economic crisis. Leaders and the Congress and lawmakers are going to say that we can't do anything about climate change or global warming because of the economy. It could possibly hurt the economy. Well, it's really going to hurt the economy the more that they wait, or the more that they delay. So, if we act now, the benefit could come about 30 to 40 years from now, and we can still have a big impact on what happens in the second half of this century. So then, what happens if we don't act now? If we don't turn this around? The southwestern states, which in the global warming equation include California and Nevada, will experience intense heat waves, poorer air quality, more intense wildfires, water shortages, more droughts, and expanding risks to agriculture. In general, the main worry in the Southwest is water resources. Dry conditions and high temperatures will increase risk for heat waves and wildfires. Along with that come issues with insects and diseases. Some insects, such as the pine bark beetle, flourish with a longer summer season, and the dead trees they create lead to higher wildfire risk. And then there are water issues. And we're already seeing the impacts of climate change on public health. California will also see at least a 2 to 3 foot rise in sea level, while San Francisco could see slightly more than that. Northern Plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes Scientists predict that the northern plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes areas will experience stronger storms, longer storm seasons, and an increase in temperatures. The greatest warming in the winters in the U.S. has been happening over the northern plains, the Dakota Territories, and the northern Great Lakes. Some estimates predict temperature changes as high as 5 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit in winter and 5 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit in summer before 2100. This and more messy episodes of freezing rain may occur in midwinter instead of snow, much stronger, much more intense storms, more tornadoes, bigger tornadoes, perhaps even year-round. Northeast Virginia to Maine. The northeastern U.S. will experience rising temperatures and harsher but less frequent storms if global warming remains, and will be more susceptible to sea level rise and flooding than other coastal areas around the country. The largest metropolitan areas along the seaboard are especially at risk for stronger storms and flooding. Models suggest that in the future, the normal weather patterns that we now have will shift further north. This could extend the risk of bigger hurricanes from southern cities such as New Orleans and coastal areas in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas to cities as far north as New York and Boston. And East Coast cities will also be more affected by sea level rise than other areas of the U.S. Today's coastal areas will be very different by the end or before the end of this century if we do nothing. On average, global sea levels will go up at least 2 to 3 feet. But scientists expect that in some coastal cities, such as Boston and New York, complex ocean currents that will change as our climate changes will add at least an extra 8 inches to the increase in water level. Rising sea levels could flood subways and underground sewage and transportation systems if left unchecked. Or these cities could become similar to New Orleans in that they'd need to build massive infrastructure like levees to protect them from rising sea levels. And there could be an increase in the number of extreme storms, very extreme storms. Rocky Mountains, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and Montana. Scientists predict that before or by 2100, increasingly early snowmelts will put a strain on water supplies in Denver, Salt Lake City, and other communities fed by Rocky Mountain rivers. An earlier spring disrupts natural systems in ways that lead to human health issues. More wildfires, more extreme temperatures, worse droughts. Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. Climate changes in the northwestern states as a result of global warming will include heavier rainfall and higher temperatures in cities like Seattle and Portland. Precipitation trends have shown daily rainfall events have become heavier, and expect more intense rainfall, a shorter snow season, earlier snow melt and runoff, followed by water shortages in the summer. These changes in river flows could affect salmon and many other species. These same states will experience much higher temperatures, especially in the summer. There will be very dramatic warming over the higher latitudes of both hemispheres. Increased air pollution, higher concentrations of soft ground-level ozone smog, and in Alaska, melting permafrost, ice and snow cover on land masses creating swampland and an outgassing of methane that will impact plant and wildlife, and many other consequences of rapid global warming and climate change. And once again, in turn, all these things are connected to the end times transition days. And transition is happening every day all around the world.